I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow, and this is At Home in Bloomington, brought to you by Karen Rostel, Ruoff Home Mortgage. We profile the people, places, and resources that make Bloomington, Bloomington, and help you live your best life. At Home in Bloomington.
Hello and welcome to At Home in Bloomington. I'm your host, Realtor Deb Tomorrow, joined as usual by the lovely Miss Karen Rostel from Ruoff Home Mortgage. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Deb.
Looking very springy.
Spring.
It's like 50 degrees.
It is 50 degrees
We're recording this in February, and
it's 50 degrees.
I had to go home and change clothes. Because I had a big, fluffy sweater on because I was, really cold this morning.
So
anyways. Okay, so, as usual, you have no idea who the guest is who sits before us.
No.
So, I have an introduction, but it doesn't make any sense. But I'm going with it anyways.
Okay.
So I think the theme of today's show may be, and I digress, because there may be some moments of digression. But I think it's going to be a really interesting show. So in doing research for today's show, I learned a fun fact.
Okay.
Did you ever watch Star Trek?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. And I really didn't either. But Eurus went through a phase a year or two ago where it was on the TV a lot. Mm-hmm. And so, you just kind of watch because some of the people are attractive and whatever. You kind of figured it out. Sorry.
Okay.
There's that one, Jonathan, Frakes character.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Okay. But anyways, we watched a lot of The Next Generation and Voyager.
Okay.
Which is another one. And I'm not a Trekkie, so I'm not trying to offend the people who love Star Trek because I have no... This is Midwestern girl just saying things. Okay. Voyager, I never understood because you know what? They get stuck out in space somewhere. They get stranded in the Delta Quadrant. And I'm like, why can't they go back? And no one's ever been able to really explain to me that in a way that I've understood. But I'm not a physics person. So anyways, okay, so the captain on Star Trek Voyager was the first female captain in the series of Star Trek. So that's important, right? And her name was Captain Catherine Janeway.
All right.
She was portrayed by Kate Mulgrew. That doesn't matter. Because in her made-up biography, right, all these characters, because it's such a big thing, the Star Trek, right, all these characters have these made-up biographies, official biographies. She was born in Bloomington, Indiana.
Nice.
The character.
That's nice.
Not the actual, right?
Okay.
All right. So you're with me so far?
So far.
Okay. So last year there was a contest that I think our guest had a hand in to name probably the newest street in the Bloomington city limits. I'm going to guess it's probably the newest street so far, right?
We added a street. City limits.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
And there were quite a few entries, and there were several suggesting Janeway Street after Captain Janeway.
Because her character was born here in Bloomington.
I thought that was brilliant.
Okay.
And now that I know about this whole thing, I'm really disappointed.
Because they
didn't go with it, right?
Okay.
They also came up with, this is another digression, but this is going to ring a bell. Another one was Population Center Street.
No, I don't
know. No, do you remember that we talked about this before on our Real Estate Today podcast when we did shows about Owen County and Greene County?
I do.
And that in the early 1900s, the mean population, center of the country, meaning there were just as many people living north as south and east as west, and they measure that point. And at one point it was in Owen County, at one point it was in Greene County, but in 1910, it was somewhere right around where the Beeline Trail intersected with Rogers Street, which is pretty close
to be right now.
Which is pretty, and that's where we're going today.
Okay.
See, it all makes sense. So the name they came up with of the street was not Population Center. It was not Janeway Street. It was Maker Way, which is fine, I guess.
There was that name. I like that one too.
Maker Way.
Yes.
One of my other favorites was this road.
No, to go with that road?
To go with that road.
Yeah.
There was brilliance just all over the place, which is why Bloomington is an emerging, technology center of brilliant people. So anyways, that has nothing to do with anything except that
he was trying to name and push for one of the names.
And so it's probably his fault that it didn't get named Janeway. Am I right on that?
Not exactly my fault, but the story is... we held a naming contest, and there were two parts of it. One is the public could submit their suggestions. So we got things like Janeway Boulevard and Tyra Bus Drive and Hard Drive. That was one of our suggestions.
Cute.
And so from that, what we decided was, okay, let's throw out all the ones that won't likely get approved by City Council.
So it's City Council's fault.
So things like Tech Park 2, the Electric Boogaloo Avenue.
Oh, that would have been funny.
What
that
was the
did
other
not
one?
make it.
There was something off of the Bodie McBoatface.
Streety McStreetface.
There you go.
So we
Remember?
wanted to prevent that from happening again, where it was 100% pure
Entertainment value.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, we narrowed it down to 5 or 10, and then the public got to vote on which one they liked best, and Maker Way was it.
Awesome. So Maker Way is the home or roundabout of Dimension Mill, and this is Pat East, who is the executive director of Dimension Mill. Have you heard of Dimension Mill?
No, I have not.
Okay. We're going to make sure that everybody is aware of that. Now, you don't always work in your office, right?
That's correct. I don't.
So sometimes you work from home. Sometimes you have another office downtown that you go to. Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like there are a lot of people who don't have a traditional office to go to. And that's a big part of what, do you call it the mill or Dimension Mill, or what's the cool name? What would be cool?
The vernacular is the mill.
Okay.
So it's Dimension Mill Inc. That's the 501c3 that runs the mill.
Okay.
And it was called Dimension Mill way back in the 1900s, because that's where they brought in all the they brought in all of the wood for the Shire Brothers Furniture Factory. And then they milled that wood to the dimension. Then it went down into City Hall where they finished it. And so that's how it got its name, Dimension Mill.
Isn't it funny that Dimension Mill sounds very like modern and like techie, but really it had to do with, building furniture.
Yeah.
So you are located in what's now being called the Trades District, which is fairly new area. Karen, you're looking lost.
I feel like I don't even live in Bloomington. Like I feel
this is all
like
brand new.
Right?
No, I mean, I'm like the whole naming of a new street, and then we're calling things district. I mean, that's great because that's what I loved about New Orleans. The one thing I loved about New Orleans was that they would say, "Oh, you need to be in this parish," and I'm like, "Oh, well, that makes sense." Like I understood what that quarter was.
Right. What that area
so
was.
It's called the
Trades District, and I would say it's, and Pat, you can kind of correct me here, but some kind of between like 9th and 11th, or maybe 8th and 11th, and Morton and Rogers, kind of right in there.
Yeah, that's about right. So the Trades District is right downtown. It's directly north of City Hall and directly south of Upland. So right in that area you described. It's 11 acres that's designated as a technology park. So it's a tax designation from the state government to encourage more development of that area, specifically with technology and innovation-driven companies.
So what the mill is trying to do is, as part of that, is create a community for people who maybe don't have traditional offices. And I found the idea really fascinating, and I went on a tour, and I asked a lot of questions that probably kind of come across as like, well, duh, because I'm old. So I'm like, well, doesn't it get noisy? And things like that, because it's basically a big space where some people can rent offices and some people can just rent a desk, and you can come and go, and you can probably talk about the basics of it a little bit better than I can.
It's 19,000 square feet of coworking and incubator space. So what that means is we have about a third of that space that is dedicated for coworking, which is you get a designated desk or a hot desk, first come, first serve, and it's for really folks who work remotely, freelance designers, freelance workers, independent consultants, folks who are working on a startup and are just a backpacking idea company right now, and they don't necessarily need a permanent desk, a permanent space, that they really just kind of come in whenever they need to, and they work from a variety of different places, not just the mill. And then we have another third of the building is for private offices. So these are more traditional offices where you've got a company that's established, that's up and running. It's not yet a viable company, because most of these companies are less than a couple years old, and so they're on month-to-month leases. And we try to be as flexible as possible with them. They come fully furnished, so really easy to get in, easy to get out. And then probably another third of the building is just kind of common areas and our event space. We have a couple thousand square feet of event space that's perfect for 100 to 150 person events, anything from volunteer recognition dinners to, we had our launch party, obviously in our own building in the event space. We've had a variety of speakers down there as well. We hold a monthly networking event there. So
I want to talk about that.
Lots of different activities.
So my question is, for that first set of people that you mentioned that might use the mill, they don't have an office, may not necessarily need one, or they come in and they get a desk space. What is it to use other equipment that you have in there, such as
why would someone not work at their dining room table and actually put clothes on and go out into public to work?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
There's a bunch of different reasons. Everybody has their own particular reason. One is that working from home can be lonely, right? So sometimes when you have a job where you are the only person in your company that works remotely, or maybe everybody works remotely and you don't see everybody on a regular basis, it just gets tough to stare at that white wall every day. And so this is a way to have friends and build community and still get your work done, because there's lots of other folks that are in your position. Another reason is to get access to resources. So we have 15 different companies and 150 members in our space that are all going through the same issues and trials and tribulations that you are. So whether you're a startup trying to figure out how to get your product out there and get funding, or whether you're a remote worker who has literally never seen anybody ever on your team or not even traveled to headquarters to be interviewed, those folks, there's somebody there at the mill that shares those same sentiments. We also have a lot of resources that you can't get at home. So we have a state-of-the-art podcast studio. We have mentors and weekly programming, and we have a high-end kitchenette that's about 1,000 square feet or so that has sealed limestone countertops and a high-end tile backsplash, and just lots of things.
And the lighting was done by my friend Matt.
That's right. Matt Lairdy of Platformatics.
We went to college together.
And we have a 30-seat classroom, and we have 3 conference rooms, we have 3 call rooms. There's just lots of amenities that you can't either get at home, or even if you would go out to lease your own office space, you're not going to be able to get for the type of pricing that you can get at the mill.
So I was curious about this idea of collaboration amongst, because everybody's doing a different job, working for different companies, and yet when I was there, I saw people chatting, and at first I'm like, oh, well, they're probably just gossiping about something. But no, I mean, I think they were talking about work-related. So I'm just curious about how those relationships happen. I guess just being, and I was asking that question, and the woman giving me the tour was kind of like, because she's a millennial, and they do things differently than we do, and they form relationships and friendships, and I don't know. I mean, it was just kind of different. But I think that just being in these rooms, because it's pretty much an open room with people day after day, you start to say hello, and you start to say, hey, where do you work, or what do you, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're, at the end of the day, we're all people, we're all humans, we all have the same wants and needs and desires. Even though we may be doing different jobs, we all want the same things out of life. We all want to be happy, we want to have control over our day, we want to have friends and have a happy, healthy family. In all of our businesses, even though they may be different in terms of one being an architect and another one being a startup, a software startup, and another one being an investment service, they all have the same common thread of they have customers, and customers have pains, and your job as business owners, as CEOs, to figure out what those pains are and to solve them in the best way that you can. And so even though everybody is doing different, or has a different profession, essentially, because they're in different industries, we all have very, very similar themes to our businesses in terms of wanting to grow really fast, wanting to potentially get investment capital, wanting to hire the best talent, wanting to hire folks coming right out of IU, wanting to have the best board of advisors, having customers. Those are all those are all common to all the companies at the mill.
Interesting. I feel like we should subtitle this show like tech from an old person's perspective, because you're like, oh, I don't know.
I think if I were in there, because I do end up just like randomly talking to strangers and people, but in that kind of setting, I wouldn't want to like intrude on someone's like work time, unless it's weird. Yeah, it's kind of like work. Oh, I shouldn't say it like that. Never mind. I was going to say like workplace dating, but like more of a like getting to know each other type of thing. Like I'd have to look for like, did we make eye contact? Did we like have a moment there in, in the kitchen
that we're allowed to
that I could
start a conversation. But you also do events and things like that for members, or I mean for everyone, but really members are very encouraged to come to these events, and that's Absolutely. A great way to also build relationships. So I do like the idea of sort of having a work away from work, in terms of if you're not on location, that you have a way to still have the perks and benefits of friends and work friends and those kind of work husbands, work wives, that sort of thing. So let's back up a little bit and talk about the history, because it's relatively new, although the concept of co-working has been in Bloomington for quite some time. So you were approached by the city?
I was approached by the city / the BEDC. So the city had hired, let me take a half step back. The city owns the Trades District, and they own, because they own the Trades District, they own the mill that sits within the Trades District. They hired the BEDC, the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation, to administratively set up the mill. So they were hired to hire me as the executive director. They found all of our board members. They filed the paperwork so that we could become a C Corp. They filed all the paperwork for us to become a 501c3. Administratively, they're the ones that started the mill.
Okay.
But it was at the city's direction.
And when was that happened?
Gosh, I was officially hired in September 2017. We were probably talking about the mill maybe at least a year before that.
Okay. And then
12 months before
the construction was going on, the 2017, 2018, towards a start date of, was it November of 2018?
The actual construction started in March of 2018 and finished around Halloween 2018. Okay. So it took about half a year or so.
And the building is amazing. We talked a little bit about the history, that it was a furniture. You've heard of Showers Furniture, right? Please tell me you have.
No.
Oh, gosh. Okay, Karen. There's a book I'm going to get you that our friend, the late Carol Krause, wrote about Showers Furniture. It was a huge, huge furniture company here in Bloomington. The family came to town and they started this furniture company. It's a big reason why some of the railroad tracks are where they are, and all of those buildings down there. But you know the building that has the sawtooth on the roof?
Yes.
That's the mill. Why is there a sawtooth? Why is the roof jagged like that?
That is a great question. So the mill, Dimension Mill, and all the Shower Brothers buildings, they're about 100 years old, right? So this was before electricity, before water, sewage, all the infrastructure that we have now. And so when you're in that environment and you're doing manual labor, I mean, these folks were making furniture and bringing in raw logs. When you're doing that type of work, it gets really hot during the summertime. And so one way to have light come in is to have these sawtooth roofs where the windows face north and the sunlight comes in, and so you get all the benefit of the light, but not the direct heat.
The heat.
And so, those the Shower Brothers were actually really progressive in a bunch of their business practices, but that one in particular, because they took that from the Europeans, specifically the Norwegians.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's very common in Norway.
I was looking up the picture because I was like, that's right. Why is that roof like that?
Right, and you can see it because it's very iconic for Bloomington, that a silhouette of that building, but to know what it is and what's going on there. And then you've got solar panels up there too.
Mm-hmm. We have solar panels on the south side of them now. Okay. So even though that's not what they're built for, they're perfect for solar panels. And so I think we have maybe the first or second most solar panels of any building in Monroe County. Nice. We made that a priority.
Yeah. And the building's amazing. All the wood floors are reclaimed. I don't know if they're from that building or they're reclaimed.
Are.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So
they
those
were
are
restored.
103-year-old wood floors. So
gorgeous.
We weren't able to reclaim all the wood because it was a 100-year-old building and lots of leaks in the roof. And so water would come in and wick out, And so some of the wood was warped and it was really brittle when we tried to reclaim it, but we did reclaim as much as we could. And when you walk through the building, most of the reclaimed wood is in the community areas. Okay. So the architects did a really phenomenal job of using materials to define all the spaces. So concrete generally is where you walk. Those are the pathways. The reclaimed wood are generally community areas, and then there's lots of carpet in the offices in the general work areas.
How long was the building empty before the renovation started?
It was empty probably 50 to 75 years.
Because it's like, I don't remember anything ever being there. So it was furniture and then nothing. Nothing came in after the furniture business.
The only thing that the building was used for was IU would use it as storage. So it was a really phenomenal storage shed. So they would store all of the bikes at the end of the semester, waiting to be auctioned off. They would store all of the graduation robes for graduation pickup, and then they would also have some of the plays and operas, all the stages there as well.
Interesting. Isn't that crazy?
That is wild.
Just sitting down there.
You said 19,000 square feet. Is that right?
Yeah, 19,000 square feet. That was really just one big storage facility.
All right, we've got to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more details about if you're interested in working there, using up some of the space, and what the different plans are that they have to offer. And I hope that we can get into some of the events and things like that you offer as well. So stick around. You're at home in Bloomington.
Hi, this is Karen Rastel with Ruoff Home Mortgage. Did you know we are on the cutting edge of technology when it comes to applying for a mortgage? Loan Butler was created with you in mind. It's a fast, convenient, and secure way to apply online for a mortgage loan. It reduces the amount of paperwork and time for you. Save a tree and contact me today at 812-606-7653 for more details. Ruoff Home Mortgage is an Indiana corporation licensed by the Indiana Department of Financial Institutions. This is not an offer for extension of credit or a commitment to lend. All loans must satisfy company underwriting guidelines. Equal housing lender. NMLS number 141868.
This is your Real Estate Realist. Practical advice on buying and selling real estate based on my experience closing over 800 home sales. Time for some bad news. Sometimes real estate transactions don't close. The main reason for this are typically inspections and financing, though there are probably a million other reasons in the history of real estate that transactions fall apart. We are dealing with human beings after all. But what do you do when a deal falls apart? Well, here's some advice. First of all, keep it in perspective. It's disappointing for sure, but probably not the end of the world. Forgive, whether it was your fault or not, and move forward. Holding on to anger and disappointment is not healthy, nor does it get you any closer to your goal of home ownership. Secondly, along these same lines, don't try to force it if the transaction isn't happening. Here's an example. You can't get financing on a house because it's in poor condition. Trying to force something to happen, trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole, is probably just wasting time. This is when you rely on your hired professionals, like your realtor, to advise you and guide you. Follow their lead. And thirdly, learn from the failed transaction. Whether it's because the home was in bad condition, financing fell apart, or any of the other million reasons, take the opportunity to learn more about the home buying and selling process. There may have been nothing you could have done differently, but you can certainly learn and know more about the process and become an even savvier buyer and seller. For more information on what to do if a deal falls apart, check out my Real Real Estate Today podcast, episode 12. You can find it on YouTube, iTunes, and my website, www.athomeinbloomington.com.
My name is Donna, and my realtor is Deb Tomorrow. When it comes time to buy or sell a home, she is the obvious choice. Deb is not your average realtor. She stands beside you all the way, before, during, and after your real estate transactions. Deb is passionate about real estate, and it shows. So just do it. Choose Deb. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to At Home in Bloomington. This episode's Facebook follow segment encourages you to follow our friends at Green Camino Curbside Composting. They're working their what's off, trying to reduce the amount of stuff going into landfills. It's already about the same weight as 5 of my favorite cars, the El Camino. They've got some amazing ideas, inspiring goals, and you need to follow them on Facebook. So check them out, Green Camino Curbside Composting.
All right, back to Pat east of the Dimension Mill or the Mill. And I want to ask a few more questions about just sort of the setup and who you have working there, because again, it's just sort of an interesting concept. Now, you didn't start from scratch because the mill actually bought an existing co-work space called CoWork Bloomington LLC, right?
Yep, you got it. Yep. In around Memorial Day of last summer,
2018,
we bought CoWork B-Town.
And then so you worked out of their space basically for a while the mill was being finished up?
Exactly. Yeah, we worked there for most of the summer and then the early part of the fall where all the construction was being finished. And part of the reason why we wanted to buy them was because they just had such a cool culture there. Really smart people doing cool, interesting things. And they also had a really good eye for design with on a shoestring budget. So the guys who started with quite literally $0. It was just them and I think one friend who was willing to pay them money for a desk and said, all right, here's some money, figure out everything along the way. And we just really like that attitude and approach of starting with what's in front of you, quite literally. Yeah. And we want to take advantage of that culture. I
love this idea of people who just sort of say, I have enough confidence in myself, I can figure that out. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And I can handle anything that comes my way. We'll figure it out and we'll keep moving on and taking risks. And I think that that's really exciting. So can you give us some examples of what people are what are the jobs or what are the businesses that are taking advantage of the mill?
So we have 15 companies in the mill and 150 members. So we had maybe about 75 or 100 members when we purchased CoWork. So we've been able to grow quite a bit. These companies range from software and innovation and technology-driven companies to what you would kind of consider more of your traditional small business. So the folks who clean our building are members of the mill too. What we really want to foster is as many technology and innovation-driven companies as possible. These are the laptop jobs of today versus the smokestack jobs of yesterday. So these are primarily knowledge jobs where they're sitting in front of a laptop, kind of pounding out code all day long or doing some sort of service. So these companies range from an AI company, an artificial intelligence company, who quite literally, they take the box score of any game and they run it through the algorithms and they can spit out what looks to be a human written article about what happened in that game. And half of the articles on CBS's fantasy sports website were quote unquote written by this company.
Written by a computer,
written
basically.
by a computer, and you can't tell the difference between...
Oh, you can, because it probably has better grammar than most people. As someone who has a huge disdain for grammatical errors. Yeah.
We have one company in the mill who has been around for about 10 or so years. They're an Inc. 5000 company. It's a software company that builds contact forms online. So a lot of the contact forms you see, those are really kind of the same code written over and over and over again. Yep. And what they do is they make it easy for people who don't understand code to be able to install that on their websites and with large companies.
That must be, we were trying to do a contact form on my website and on the nonprofit website. I think the Silver Linings, the dog rescue program that we're working on. And the web designer was like, well, you need a Series 7 something. There was like some weird, and I was like, I don't know what that means. But that's probably what that means, is that it was some sort of pre-existing form thing that you start from and build off of.
Yeah, and they've got 50 folks that work all over the world. They were started here in Bloomington, so the CEO and a handful of companies are here, but everybody works remotely, and they fly them in once a year for a big company get-together. So they're out of the mill. We have another company that... they analyze the health of beehives, so they have some software.
I've read up on Ellie.
It's called the Bee Corp, and co-founded by Ellie Sims and Wyatt, her CMO. And basically, it's software that you use on your iPhone. You take a picture of a beehive. If you have beehives,
beekeeper.
If you're a beekeeper. And it will tell you how many bees are in a beehive and how healthy they are. And the reason this is important is because if you're a large company like Palm Pistachio, those folks who are one of the world's largest growers of pistachios, you buy a ton, hundreds of thousands, literally, of beehives, and you want to know that the beehives are healthy when you buy them.
And is that because of pollination and things like that to help the pistachios
you want to make sure
grow?
you want to make sure that there's enough healthy hives and healthy bees in there so that it pollinates properly, but also you could be paying for hives that are 100% dead. You don't know. The current method is you have somebody, you pay them $10 an hour to manually look at each hive, and you literally,
if they get stung, then it's
say,
good.
Oh, okay, yeah, that looks pretty healthy. Well, you can't do that for every hive. You can only do that for 10 or 15%, but you have to assume that all of them are like that. Well, when 10% of the world's bees are dying every year, it's really not the greatest method of sustaining the human population, right? Because a third of the world's food supply comes from bees. It's pollinated by bees. So the work they're doing is super, super important there.
And I know this is another digression, but her story is fascinating. Ellies, the CEO, probably, and she was doing this as a school project at IU. And it became a full-time passion, and she's created a really amazing company, and she's very young, and she's female, and we love that too. So she's got a great story. So I would encourage people to go check out her website because it's a really interesting story.
And they just got accepted to pitch at South by Southwest. They were one of 5 companies within an accelerator that they got accepted to. There's about 75 companies in the accelerator. They're one of 5 companies from that accelerator that got chosen to pitch at South by Southwest for $75,000. And they just found out this afternoon. So phenomenal amazing company doing really important stuff.
I know. Karen's like, I have goosebumps, and I also feel really inadequate. Like, what are you doing to make a difference in the world, Karen?
No, but I love it that they're using the space at the mill because where else would they be doing that? I mean,
well, and then they're using just the space that they need, and I think that's a big thing too for this movement is you just use the space you need. You don't use too much.
Exactly.
And so that kind of brings us to, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the plans because I think they're kind of interesting. You've got a dedicated desk, which means you walk in and you have a desk that is yours 24/7. You have 24/7, 365 access to the facility.
You got it.
And then there's also a locker so you can lock up your laptop or whatever valuables. But I mean, you go in there and there are people that have their cup holder and their, everything just like that's their desk.
That's where they come every day for their work, whether they have their own company here in Bloomington or whether they work remotely for somebody else. Absolutely.
And then you can also book conference rooms. They have what they call call rooms, like phone booths. And then I also thought this was interesting. So you belong to a network. And so you can also have up to 3 days a month at other locations around the country with other facilities that belong to the network. And then you have what's called a hot desk. So what's the difference?
A hot desk is the difference between a hot desk and a designated desk is a hot desk is first come, first serve. So they're both full time. So they're both roughly 40 hours a week. But a hot desk is as long as you don't say anything on a desk, then you get to work there for that day.
So you may move around and change up your space based on your mood or what you're looking
absolutely.
To do, but other than that, the same. And then you have part-time options. So you've got like 10 days a month can be an option as well, and that's only $90 a month. So when you compare that, and everything's included, right? I mean, no utilities. You've got super duper high speed internet. I don't know what the formal, what the formal word is, but I look at it and go, I don't know what that means, but I call it super duper high speed internet.
Yep. Super duper is the technical specifications are 1 gig up, 1 gig down. It's a dedicated fiber, meaning we don't share it with any other companies. And we have our primary is provided from Smithville, and our backup is provided by Comcast. So
you'll never go down.
We'll never knock on wood.
We'll
right?
Never
go down. Yeah,
is that
we'll
a
always
challenge?
be fast.
Let me record a live podcast and your internet will probably go down. And then you've also got community members who just have some access to the building.
Right. Yeah, these are primarily folks that are that have been full-time or part-time members, but maybe they're moving away and they still want to be supportive in some way. And so it comes out to about $15 or $20 a month. And so these folks generally get online access to our Slack channel and email
what is
list.
that? Because I've seen that several times through your Slack team, and I'm like, okay, now I really feel old because I have no idea what that means.
Slack is basically an instant message service that all of our members get access to. So you can put a message in Slack to the entire membership. Like this morning, I said, "Hey, I need a pair of muck boots or hiking boots because I need to go look at property this Friday." And within a couple hours, I had 4 people that said, "Okay, here's size 11 through 13 mug boots," right? And so it's kind of a message system that either goes out to everybody in our membership, or you can do one-on-one messaging too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it might be a way to, do people use it, say, I'm stuck with this problem, or, I've got a customer issue. Has anyone experienced something similar?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a very active Slack channel where it's everything from, hey, I have this customer issue to I'm selling my old MacBook Pro to, hey, I'm going to Darn Good Soup for lunch today. Who wants to go on the DGS train?
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the events you have going on that anybody in the community can take advantage of, because that's a great way to get to know what's going on at the Dimension Home.
So we have a variety of events. We have weekly programming. That's one thing that we started very, very early on in the process. So even before we decided to open up the building, we said the main thing that we have to have community. We have to have people who know each other. We have to have relationships. And so a solid year, maybe a year and a half before we actually opened the doors to the mill, we were doing all kinds of programming. So we had skills presentations where we would bring in executives from businesses around Bloomington, where they would talk about marketing or recruitment or sales or storytelling or finances or bootstrapping, anything where there was some sort of operational skill that our startups needed. We would bring those folks in and they would give a hour-long presentation and Q&A on that particular topic for our startups. We have a monthly networking event called Collide.
Or unnetworking event.
Unnetworking event,
yes.
Thank you. So we really encourage people not to pass out business cards. We encourage people to leave their phones at the door, although that doesn't always happen. But the idea behind it is we want this to be where people literally and figuratively run into each other. The more times we can get people to share ideas, that's where innovation happens. The more ideas that get shared, the more in exchange, the more innovation that happens. So we have anywhere from 75 to 100 folks that attend that every month. We have a free lunch, we have a speaker, and really, really cool, smart people doing interesting things that attend.
I think our friends from Green Camino were a speaker. They've been on the show, and they're wonderful. They've got so many great ideas. So. Yeah,
they spoke a few months ago, and they've actually sponsored the event as well, and we've used their services there.
I was going to ask, do you recycle and do you compost?
We do.
Awesome.
We try to participate in that for sure.
Right, excellent. What's the total capacity for desks and members? Because are you afraid you're going to approach a?
I would love to have the problem where we literally have no more seats left. Quite literally, that would be still a problem, but really a great problem to have, because that means that what we did is something that's very much needed, and we're churning out and starting and accelerating more startups. The co-working model works very similar to the gym membership model. So you want to oversubscribe.
Sure.
So if you have 10 seats, you want to sell 30 seats or 40 seats.
That many more.
So when we did our research initially, it was most co-working places were oversubscribing by 5x. Our goal is 3x.
Okay.
Probably because we have some Parttime memberships, and we know not everybody's going to be there, but also our business model doesn't need to work on 5x either. It can work on a lower number. And so ultimately we want to get to about 450 members.
Wow.
And we're gaining about one or two new members a week.
Okay.
And we've been doing that since we opened. So we're on a pretty nice trajectory to hit 450 or so within a few years.
And you feel like your facility as it is now could handle 450?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How many people are there on a given day?
Anywhere from 50 to 75.
Okay.
On days where we have Collide, that's our community day. So we have multiple presentations and events. And last Thursday we had a kombucha tasting and it's first day of coworking is free, and so we have a lot more people on those days, but generally 50 to 75.
And you'll have some outdoor seating here in the spring and summer
Finally,
too,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got a nice balcony and overlooks the rest of the trades district, so we'll have that come fall. Or,
and then
come spring.
Come spring, right? Yeah. And then we should definitely mention that the event space is also available for anyone who wants it. So wedding receptions or any kind of event can be rented out as well. So it's great to always have another option in town to rent space, because you always see people saying, we need space for such and such event.
Yeah, our event space is about a couple thousand square feet, all the way up to 3,000 when you include the kitchenette, which you get as part of the event rental fee. And it fits anywhere from 100 to 150 people. Can fit more, almost up to 300 if they're all standing. And there's a catering kitchen downstairs as well, so it accommodates caterers. And there's a couple bathrooms downstairs, and there's a PA system and a 6,000 lumens projector. There's really anything you would need for an event. And our first wedding is going to be in May too.
Nice.
And so folks are already taking advantage of that.
Right.
It's a great historical building, obviously, and lots of red exposed brick.
Yeah, so there could be some really cool pictures taken around there for sure.
Absolutely.
And then there's also some smaller conference rooms and meeting rooms that could be rented out as well if you're looking for space. So now here's the big question: downtown Bloomington, what's your parking like?
We have 50 spots right now, and we have plenty of metered parking as well. So right now, 50 to 75 folks show up on a daily basis. Luckily, a lot of our folks have bicycles, and so we have a bike rack, indoor storage for bikes in the building. We're one block away from, I think it's the number 2 bus. Bird and Lime both have nests near our office for electric scooters. So we have lots of different options downtown. So far, knock on wood.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Any last misconceptions something that you want people to know about the mill before we wrap things up?
Maybe one misconception is the types of jobs we want in Bloomington, or that the mill is trying to produce. And so some of the feedback I've heard is, wow, I really like Bloomington the way it is. I don't want it to grow. I don't want to have these big manufacturing jobs here. What's going to happen to my house, or what's going to happen to my property values? And maybe the feedback I would give to those folks is that the types of jobs that the mill wants to create are quite literally everybody works on their laptop. I mean, I can sit in a 3x3 square foot space and get all of my work done. That's the type of jobs we want to create. We want these knowledge jobs. We don't want smokestack jobs. And ultimately, the folks in the mill are only going to be there temporarily. So it's very much not just our intention, but the whole premise of the mill is folks want to start and accelerate their companies inside the mill. Then once they get going, we want them to outgrow us as quickly as possible. All of our private offices are on a month-to-month basis with a maximum of 2 years. So at the point of 2 years,
interesting.
We definitely want you to have gotten so big and grown so quickly that you need to find another space and make room for somebody else that needs those resources. And so to those folks that are scared that these are not the types of jobs we want, that I would argue that these are the types of jobs we want. We want to create more opportunities for our citizens here in Bloomington with high growth and high wage jobs, and bring in capital from outside the community, from which is what these technology and innovation companies can do. Yeah,
it's really, really interesting. Makes you want to go, I don't know, start a YouTube channel or something. I don't know what I would do in terms of technology. It's a little bit, like I said, this is old people going, wow. But the brain power that's going on is amazing, and that's certainly very encouraging and something exciting to be around. It's exciting to see those changes in Bloomington from a real estate perspective. It's a great thing as well, and I think getting that building that's been vacant for 75 years, to be doing something productive for the city is amazing too. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we've learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can just go and stick our heads in any time, right?
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
Karen can kind of check it out, and
we'll give you a tour. We'll
yeah,
show
right,
the space.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, and thank you for listening, and we will be back with another episode. You're at home in Bloomington.
Got a show idea? I'd love to hear it. And be sure to contact me for all your real estate needs and questions too. You can email me at deb@realrealestatetoday.com and follow me on Facebook at Deb Tomorrow Realtor. To contact Karen Rastel for all your mortgage needs, call 812-606-7653 or log on to ruoff.com and go to the Bloomington Center. Thanks to all the Bloomington people who make production of At Home in Bloomington possible. Special thanks to superstar producer Rachel G. Gregorio, digital guru Cynthia Hogan at Monster Digital Marketing for website design and hosting, and video genius Wes Lasher in the production house for engineering the show.